Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Osborne. I just want to welcome you to our very first webinar. And I just want to thank you for some of you that know me that we've been here serving and loving. And one of our favorite things to do is to actually put on classes. But one of the challenges is that we can only fit about 120 people into our office at one time, and which actually is frustrating. People can't get right in Jose, which means that we can't get to people in New York, we can't get to people in different parts of the world. And so the challenge then is, if we're going to change the world, if we're going to have a real impact in the world, we really need to figure out how we can get out to the world. And that's why we decided to do this class. And we thought it was very fitting that if we're going to do a class about changing the world, where do we need to start first, which is going to be with our kids and our families. And so we got to take care of our kids and our families if we're really going to make an impact. So we're going to give this thing a whirl, and hopefully it works out well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be switching over to my PowerPoint, but I will be speaking the whole time. And if you do have questions, try to, I don't know if there's a way to take questions, but try to type them in. If you have questions after the webinar and we can't get in touch with each other, just leave a comment on the section of the webinar, and I will actually respond to that personally, or I'll respond to it. Okay. I'll be giving out my email and contact information later on tonight. So we're going to get started here. I'm just going to move us over to our presentation for the night. And let me go. We're going to go the entire screen here. All right. And hopefully it's coming up right about now. There we go. So I'm going to share that screen right there. And hold on, all this new complicated newfangled stuff. There we go. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is Dr. Osborne, and I am I've been in practice here for almost 24 years. And what this means is that as one goes into practice, you really never know where you're going to start off with. And I started off with I started off as a sports doctor, and next thing you know, all the patients started bringing their family and friends by. And the funny thing about that is that next thing you know, I became a family doctor, and this is just one of our families that came in here, and we couldn't fit any more in. But so our mission is to change the way that people really perceive and receive their health care, and in doing that, we'll be able to change lives. So I'm going to actually have to check on something here to make sure this is working. Sorry. That doesn't seem to be working there. All right, just stay right there, and I promise I'll be right back. I'm just going to print this out for you guys. And if you need copies of this PowerPoint, just feel free to let me know. And we're just going to get started here in just about 2 seconds. And that way I can make sure that, yeah, I think we're going to be good here. Just hold on for 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I'm not quite sure that, I'm sorry about that. I'm a little embarrassed. So we're going to go right back to where we started there. And I think the interesting thing is that when we really look at where we're going with our families, we have all these different generations. We have those people that are in their 70s that they were the building generation. And now we have these people that we have what we call Generation Alpha, which is this new generation. Well, the problem is that the building generation, what they ended up, we're starting to see the impact of the way that they live their lives, and the way that they actually, and the nutrition that they ate, and the way that they exercised, and the way that they thought. And one of the biggest challenges is right now we have the sickest population right now in the United States, or in the history of the United States. So we're going to get started right now, and I'm just going to pull this right back over to the PowerPoint there, and we should be good to go. And it should be coming up right there. Good. And let's get to view here. So we're going to move right on here. So that's a little bit about me, but I think the main thing that I want you guys to understand is what the mission of Discover Chiropractic is. It's about empowering people. It's about helping them realize what their God-given potential is. And so we really want to empower longer, healthier lives for our patients through chiropractic care. And really, our goal is what we call max living. Like, so many of us live with minimized lives where we don't really have that, we're just kind of existing. And imagine if you were to live your life to the max in everything that you do. And that's really what our mission is. We want to change the way that people perceive and receive their health care. And in the meantime, and if we can do that, what we're going to essentially be able to do is save millions of lives in the process, but we'll also save, millions of relationships in the process. And that's what we're most excited about. So what are the 5 essentials? And then we're going to talk about these one at a time, and we're going to kind of blend them all in together. But really, when we're looking at how we help people get healthy and strong, so much of the time we can look at all these different things. There's thousands of books over there outside of. Sometimes we just get overwhelmed. And so that's what we've been able to do, is bring them down to what we call the 5 essentials. There are 5 key things that will have a dramatic impact on the way that that people get healthy. And the first one of them is actually what we call core chiropractic. And core chiropractic, what it allows us to do is to be able to focus on how your body functions, how the nervous system functions. We look at nutrition because your body is built up of the foods that you eat. We look at mindset, the way that we think. We look at oxygen and exercise, and we look at how can we really minimize the toxins that we're exposed to on a daily basis there. So really what my mission is, my mission really is to really apply these, and we really want to see the change in our kids and our communities. We want to be able to see a generation of kids that change how, but really incredible. Their body has no limitations, and they have no limitations in their life. See, if they put energy into it, they know that they're going to get something great out of their life. We want our kids to know that there is a consequence really for everything that they do, and health is something that we really have to work for. And so what we love that we're seeing more and more kids in their office, but we also love that the reason why they're going to the doctor is to stay healthy and well rather than trying not to be sick anymore. And when we do this, when we help the kids understand these 5 essentials, when we help patients and like parents understand these 5 essentials, we know that we're really changing the mindset of this generation going forward there. So one of the big problems that like we have talked about earlier is that we're growing up and we have kids with adult conditions. Why is this important? Well, people don't understand that it really is a different world out there now that these kids are growing up. We have grandparents who are patients who are making changes and getting off their diabetes medications and heart medications, and they're literally conquering their diseases, and yet they're still going through the drive-through and getting their kids McDonald's. They know how it destroys their health, but they won't eat it themselves, yet they're getting it for their kids. I have a lot of them say that we didn't have to do this. We didn't have to take supplements. We didn't have to watch the foods that we were eating as kids. So they don't really think about the consequences of their actions. But now that they have these health problems as adults, looking back, it's probably was a better way to prevent the problems as children rather than waiting till they have diseased organs as adults. So this is really is a completely different world that we're living in, and they're growing up, and our kids are having problems. And so what's really interesting is that the Journal of American Academy of Pediatrics, what they found out recently is that they now are actually really starting to recommend that we treat kids for adult problems like high blood pressure and cholesterol management. And pediatricians, they're suggesting that they actually initiate a lifelong approach to preventing cardiovascular disease, but they suggest that we do it as children. Unfortunately, their approach and my approach is very different in that their recommendation is that we start using cholesterol drug interventions beginning at the age of 8 years. And I just wanted to let you know I said 8 years. So if that doesn't seems crazy to you, it seems crazy to me, because The kids don't need drugs. If their body actually produces 90% of the cholesterol in our body anyways is actually produced in their bodies. But we're also seeing such challenging things as kids now with heart conditions. When the problem is happening younger and younger, and yes, it's actually happening in children. So when they actually studied autopsies, and unfortunately for these children, they looked at these 200 children that had been studied following fatal car accidents. In the autopsy, they opened up the children's coronary arteries, and children between the ages of 2 to 15 had plaquing in over 10% of the cases. That means 10% or 20 children between the ages of 2 and 15 actually had coronary artery disease there. In the autopsy group that was between 16 to 20, 35% had plaquing in their arteries. And by the mid-20s, over 70% of children or young adults actually had plaquing in their arteries. So what happened between the age of 10 and 15? We think that's not a big problem at 15 years old, but by the time they're in their mid-20s, it goes up over 700 times, or 700% increase in plaque of the kids that actually had a heart disease. So the people that, when somebody comes into my office and they say they have heart disease, well, when did it start? Did it start when they were 2 years old? Did it start when they were 15 years old? Did it start when they were 20? See, the problem is that we think that our kids aren't overweight. They don't have problems. They can eat fried chicken and fried chicken fingers and macaroni and cheese for every meal, and it's not a big deal. And what I'm telling you is this is a big deal. And we're seeing the damage when they're very young. See, autism rates, when we start looking around, in 2000 they were at 1 in 150, and now they're 1 in 68. And I remember, if I go back a decade, I almost didn't even know any children that were on the autistic spectrum, and now every single family knows another family that has somebody on the spectrum there. Cancer rates these cancer rates that I have up here are from a 2010 census. But where are we going by 2020? Imagine where these numbers are headed, because it's scary about how many will be diagnosed with cancer, and it's scary how we don't take their health seriously when 2 out of 5 people will be diagnosed with cancer in the United States, and now 40 million people in the United States just living with cancer alone. I mean, those are scary numbers, but between 2010 and 2020. We actually, the study said that we actually expect the number of new cancer cases in the United States to go up 24% in just 1 decade. That's to more than 1 million a year, and up another 20% in women. See, the number of cancer-related weight-related cancers also is, what's it? It's just my face. Okay, well, good. That's all right. Let's see if you get to see my face there. Okay. Well, I had a great PowerPoint for you guys. Let me see if I can change that.
It wasn't for a moment.
Let's go. Let's share this. Let me know if that should work better.
Is that working better?
Hopefully it works better. But the number of the challenges when we see this increase in cancer is really the number of weight-related cancers is going up, estimated by 40%. So when we talk about childhood obesity being a major issue, and the cancers related to obesity are going up 40%, who do you think is actually going to get cancer? It's going to be our kids. And I have to tell you, so many of you have actually heard my story, but I grew up, and my sister actually was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 12 years old, and watching my family and what we had to go through, and the horrors of seeing my sister in a coffin and having to bury her, and see the stress on my family's face. That's one of the reasons why I am so passionate about what I do, because most people think it's not going to be them until they're hit by a serious diagnosis. And that's when people will struggle to do anything that they can to survive. And the problem is they're struggling and scrambling for hope, and they're scrambling for answers. And today is about really what I want to do is I really want to make sure that we have the answers before we have to scramble for them. We really want to push the point tonight that we never want to get to the point where we have to do something because we're in crisis. We can do anything as long as we don't run out and as long as we don't run out of time. See, behind heart disease and cancer and autoimmune diseases are now the 3rd leading cause of illness in the United States. And what this has led to us, where this has taken us right now, is that life expectancy for the U.S. population is decreased for the second year in a row. That means that we're not living longer, we're living shorter lives now, and it continues to get worse. Autoimmune disease is higher than it's ever been before. That means that the body's actually attacking itself and destroying itself. Well, how would a body learn how to attack itself? There has to be something that's been going on there. So I really want you to understand that there's one simple concept that I really want us to look at as families. When healthy adults equals healthy children, and healthy children become healthy adults. See, our kids are the great imitators. You know, we copy the habits of our parents, and we always and those habits are always duplicated by children. And we don't even know why we're doing things sometimes, because for adults it's hard to change. We just keep on doing the same old thing that we've always done, and so then when we go to try to change a bad habit, we really have to work against the tide there. But for kids, it's easy. So if they've never developed a bad habit, they don't have to change it. Or maybe you've been letting them eat in a certain way. Well, what we can do is make some certain changes in a short amount of time that will allow them to start eating healthier. And maybe they've only been eating bad for 2 years. That's much easier than having them eat bad for 20 years. But the thing is so if you have an unhealthy, overweight, high blood pressure, digestive problem, allergies, diabetes adult, then your kid is going to be set up for the same experience if they live the same lifestyle that you live. If not worse, sickness and having more sicknesses than you. So what can you do? It really is, and this is what we're trying to set the tone here. We can eat healthy. We can work out together as a family. We can get adjusted. This is the lifestyle and the habits. We need to set the tone that sets our child up for an absolutely amazing life. And what I want you to think about as we move forward about this healthy kids and healthy adults is we need to foreshadow what our future looks like for our grandkids if we don't change, and how different if we do implement changes there. It'll be a completely different world our children are growing up in. But right now, the world that we're in right now is more toxic, more nutrient deficient. There's more interventions from birth, more time indoors and on technology. In fact, we have to work harder just to support our bodies. We have to do more than what we did growing up, and more than what our parents did growing up, just to stay healthy there. So if we want our kids to have a better start than we did, it's going to have to be uncomfortable for you to change initially. Like, every change is uncomfortable, but the pain of change is only temporary. So when we imagine what your future looks like for you and your family if you don't change your health, but also imagine what it looks like for you if you do change. Will you be able to be there when they get married? Will you be able to see your grandkids? Will you be able to play with your great grandkids? The choice is yours. But the thing is a lot of times we blame it on one thing, and that's our genes. See, when we start talking about our genes, the thing is that it says we don't have to take responsibility. And really, I want you to take 100% responsibility for your life, because your genes are not your destiny or your family's future destiny. In fact, they say that 70 to 90% of all diseases are lifestyle and environmental diseases there. That means like 9 out of 10 people that are sick, that lifestyle problem there. And that's really powerful, because we can change our genes and those of our children. See, genes are turned on or off by the way we live. It's a new science that's called epigenetics. And in the 90s, researchers really began to find that these harmful chemicals and stresses and nutrition can actually permanently alter which genes are turned off, are turned on, or expressed. See, these epigenetic changes, they're small changes in our genetic our structure, are literally passed down, and they can cause diseases in future generations. And if you're thinking about having children, but if you make the right choices now, you're going to actually completely change your family tree. What you're exposed to now and the choices that you are making can actually affect your family tree for generations, to your future grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-kids. And the thing is what this means is that we're going to have to take responsibility. We can't blame our genes anymore. And if I had told you that they had a gene for diabetes, and you sit behind a desk and you eat mashed potatoes and donuts and you drink soda all day long, of course you're going to turn that gene on. That's what causes diabetes, is that lifestyle which changes those genes. So if you know that you have that gene, then you really need to move your body and change your nutrition and change so that you change the expression of that gene for yourself. Just because your mother had something, your father had something, and you think that it's in your genes doesn't mean that you have to have it. We want you to build a strong family tree of health. When your kids have kids that are healthy, that tree just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. The problem is that what's really fascinating, this is not just theoretical talk. This is not a motivational or inspirational talk that I'm giving. Really, the experience of stress, really what they find out is that the stresses that our grandparents were under will have an impact on us. See, it's a, they talk, when people talk about evolution, that's a thing that might take 60 to 100,000 years for something to change. But what happens is we find is that your nervous system responds in the moment, and your nervous system is what controls your epigenetic changes there. So the aspects of our early life stay with us for the rest of our lives, and they really set us up for a lifetime they set us up for a lifetime that predisposes us to appetite issues and whether we're going to lay down fat. And these things are really affected, and this is what these studies show, by the mother's diet. So a mother's diet will definitely have an impact on a child's future health, their physical composition, and even in the aspects of the father's lifestyle. Well, they're now finding what can actually be passed down through the sperm of all things, which is absolutely amazing to me. So there's a new focus on adolescent health and behavior. If we want to change our young people, we actually have to help their parents have a better epigenetic expression. So what that means is that everything matters. Where you are is not just the problems that you have. They're things that you've inherited from your parents and your parents' parents based on their lifestyle and their choices. And it's time to actually just stop this insanity and start moving forward. So now that we know that we are responsible for our health, and that our genes, our genes are not our destiny, our DNA is not our destiny, and we know that we are brilliant and powerful, and that it took from a sperm and an egg to create the 72 trillion cell magnificent human being. Well, one of the biggest things that I always talk to parents about when we're looking at trying to have a healthy family is about a healthy immune system. Because there's nothing that, and as a parent, I come from 9 brothers and sisters. As a parent, there's nothing that we're more afraid of as our kids getting sick. And it is important that a parent understands what the immune system is and what it does and really how it develops there. So really what I want to talk about for you, just to help as we move forward, knowing that you have the ability to change your child's genes, but you also have ability to impact their immune system. See, most development of your immune system really starts in what we call your microbiome. Your microbiome is the bacteria that are in your intestines, and most of that development starts in the first 3 years of life, and it continues to on into your early teenage years, and really it doesn't develop much beyond that point. What I'm saying about this is that a vast majority of your immune system is established within the first 3 years of your life there, and there's a good reason why this happens. And most of the times, if you think about us as human beings, we're born sterile, and then we go through the vaginal canal, which covers us with the bacteria from the mother, which protects and it works symbiotically with us. They actually call it the probiotic gulp when a child comes out, as they are exposed to the mother's feces there. And when that happens, that child is exposed to over 5,000 species of bacteria that live in our gut and communicate. And those bacteria that live in our gut, they actually communicate with our brain and our immune system there. What's fascinating is when we start thinking about how we think, 50% of the dopamine in our brain and 90% of the serotonin are actually made in our gut. And literally the microbes in our gut communicate with the brain through a nerve called the vagus nerve. Literally, these microbes can actually hijack the signaling to our brain that causes us to even crave certain foods. Certain microbes can cause us to crave sugars. And so then because we're creating sugars, and then all we're doing is feeding those microbes that actually crave the sugars, and then they grow and they create more cravings. So a lot of times people will tell me, look, I'm addicted to sugar. You're not addicted to sugar. The microbes in your intestines are addicted to sugar. Now, it could be that one of the things that we could always look at is that when we start craving certain foods, maybe it's not just that like that you don't have willpower. Maybe it may be that you just don't have a healthy microbiome or healthy gut bacteria. And the thing is that in making a healthy gut bacteria, it takes work initially to make a change. And especially if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old and you have chronic health issues there. But this is important because that not only is digestion health digestion have an impact on your health, but like I said, it has an impact on your thinking and your mood and affecting 70 to 80% of your immune function and your skill as well. I mean, and your skin as well. And the biggest challenge I find is the number one thing that I find that leaves an impact is that impacts the microbiome is it starts with a compromised birthing process. See, sometimes we have a vaginal birth, yet the child is sick, and many times it can be traced back to the mother actually not having a healthy microbiome, a healthy gut bacteria there that they actually needed as a child. So their gut biome didn't develop properly, and so they're passing on a bad biome to the child. And I'm sorry, mothers, there's a tendency we want to take be in charge of our kids' health. But if you don't know these things, they still apply to your health and your child's health at the same time there. See, a baby's microbiome is passed on from the mother, and that's why we work so hard to deal with any compromise that they may have initially. The great news is that there's always a plan in place. Mother's milk, it actually supports the growth of certain microbes that influence your immune system. And antibodies to infection are made in the mother's body and pass through the milk to protect the baby as their immune system is developing. So you look at this, how perfect this whole process is that you have these gut bacteria that develop your immune system, and they're passed down from your mother there. And then and at the same time, she's still able to nurse you, and she's passing on antibodies to you and other the good, healthy bacteria that build up your immune system. See, we're not designed to be sick. We're designed to be healthy. Everything is in our favor to be healthy. The problem is when we start interfering with it. And this is what we're really starting to see here, is when we start looking at all these common immune system disorders in children, type 1 diabetes, asthma, allergies, hay fever. We look at dermatitis and eczema. Eczema is a big one that I'm starting to see more and more these days. Kids with food allergies and ulcerative colitis, and even kids with cancer, which is almost unheard of in my day. These are all common things, but they're not normal. These are all things that people don't normally associate with an immune system, but these are all immune responses, and they're related to a proper gut bacteria there. So how does this happen? So how does the gut bacteria get destroyed? Well, first of all, one of the things is that with C-sections, when we actually, instead of doing a vaginal birth, we'll actually be in we'll actually miss the probiotic gulp there. It's because it's an intervention. It's an interference process. Sometimes we'll have a mother that has been diagnosed with a positive strep test, and they're giving antibiotics at birth, which is crazy. But now, not only is the mother's gut biome compromised, but so is the child's gut biome compromised. Antibiotic use during the first 3 years of the life is one of those things that we want to avoid at all costs. A mother's use of antibiotics will destroy her microbiome, which is then passed to the baby. We give antibiotics then to the kids. There's antibiotics in the animals that we eat. There's antibiotics in the sanitizers and the hand wipes and all the cleaners that we use around the house there. And literally, it's a miracle that we actually have any bacteria left. There's a friend of mine, Josh Axe, actually wrote a book called The Dirt Cure. And literally he talked about, hey, look, we just need to let our kids get dirty and play in mud puddles again and to get exposed to the bacteria in the environment, because we become so sterile that we literally have washed everything and cleaned anything that our kids would normally get exposed to with the bacteria in the environment. But literally the big thing that I want you to be aware of is unnecessary antibiotics. They can literally massively disrupt the function of the microbiome. And they should be a last resort, not a first line of defense. So what I want you to make sure that if there's an issue, that you actually do your homework when it comes to antibiotics and really ask the doctor if it's necessary. If the doctor says they have a viral infection, antibiotics are a waste. They don't work there. Sometimes if they want to prescribe, ask them if how they know this is the right antibiotic for that child there. But make sure that it's 100% necessary for that child to take antibiotics there. So or can the child actually fight off whatever is happening on their own? See, if they do need to take antibiotics, parents need to be strict about getting them good cultured foods to help them repair their biome after the antibiotic use. If a mother had a history of antibiotic use, if a child's been giving antibiotics or a history of C-section, probiotics should always be administered from birth ongoing there. And that's one of the three things that I am a big fan of. I always talk about there's three things that everybody every day should be taking. The first one is what we call omega-3s. So they're fish oils. They actually, as a child, the fish oils help build the child's brain, but they also reduce inflammation. The second thing is vitamin D. I think about one study I read said 97% of the people in the United States are vitamin D deficient. And we'll talk about it later, but literally vitamin D is literally your immune hormone. So can you imagine being deficient in your immune hormone, the thing that's going to regulate your immune system? The other thing is that in regards to vitamin D, we're supposed to be exposed to sun, and most of our kids are spending all their time in carpools and inside the houses there. Maybe every once in a while, 2 or 3 times a week, they might get out in the sun and get exposed to sun, to actually get exposed to sun. But most kids that we're running into are vitamin D deficient. The other thing that's really crazy, that's really going to destroy the gut microbiome, is going to be sugar. Sugar is a food that damages. And so with taking all kinds of probiotics and things to help our gut, if we create a climate in our gut that bad bacteria will really thrive on, we're wasting our time. We don't want to set up an environment in the gut that these bad bacteria love. Other things that can damage the environment, the microbiome, are going to be pesticides. We'll get into that a little bit later, but hormones in food will have a major impact. Fast food, packaged food, hydrogenated oils, artificial sweeteners, and certain formulas have actually been found to increase intestinal permeability. That means leaky gut. Literally, with some of the cheaper formulas, we're literally causing leaky gut syndrome in our children. And rice cereals that are introduced when enzymes are not available to break down rice, well, they literally produce small amounts of they'll actually create an inflammatory response in the intestines there. Because the problem is that if we try to feed a child a rice cereal, well, they can only produce a small amount of something called salivary amylase as a newborn. What that means is that you can't eat amylase is what you use to actually break down. It's the enzyme that your body uses to break down starches. See, most of the mother's milk is actually fat. Our bodies are designed to run on fat at that age. And so we start introducing things like rice cereal. We don't even have the enzymes in our body to actually be able to break it down. You know, with the amylase, the production will increase in the first few months. And right around 6 months of age, then and only then can a child actually adequately break down something such as rice cereal or some of these high carbohydrate things. There are great things that you can do, and it's not all, I don't want to be like Mr. Negative, but there are foods that support us. But the thing is, we're going to find out there are foods that come in a whole form. There are foods by God, probiotic foods like homemade yogurts, goat milk yogurts, coconut milk yogurts, things like kefir and kombucha tea. For kids, you can mix them up and put some of the kombucha on ice there, pickles and sauerkraut and kimchi and other cultured foods. And if you've ever tried to culture foods, it's actually a lot of fun. You know, we used to, in the old days, that's the way they used to preserve foods, was by culturing it. And one of the great things is that it actually helped them develop their immunity. But so when we start to introduce our children to these foods, introduce them to fruits and sugar-based foods. If we do that, they're going to always have it. If we introduce them to the fruits and the sugar-based foods first, they're always going to have a tendency to gravitate towards them later in life. And what I mean by that is that, it's really the first thing that you ever eat becomes your favorite thing. Does that make sense? It's like that little duckling. The first thing that the duckling sees becomes its mom. So if we start introducing them with lots of fruits and lots of sugar-based and carb-based foods earlier in life, they're more likely to gravitate towards that in later life. And if you start off with good cultured foods, they're going to be more likely to want to eat healthier, and you'll give them a better start, not just at life, but for the rest of their life. So that's why the third thing that I always recommend, we talked about omega-3s, we talked about vitamin D, but I'm a major fan of probiotics. I think probiotics are an everybody, everyday type thing, just because we've destroyed as a population, as a country, as a world, we've created so many things that will destroy and interfere with our gut microbiome. So if you're feeling the stress of what I'm talking about, that this is my kid, all we have to do is really correct the imbalance. So maintaining a strong immune system and digestive tract is one of the most important things you can do for your kid's well-being. You see, your digestive system health is literally dependent upon the delicate balance of these beneficial gut flora, and we need to change our nutrition. But supplements are needed sometimes to correct when there's a deficiency. See, supplements allow us to get out of crisis. We don't want to rely on supplements. We don't want to take supplements to make up for bad nutrition. But this product that we have in our office, the Max Kids Probiotic Power, this supplement increases the number of beneficial bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract, which is then going to restore balance and promote optimal digestion and a healthy immune system. How beautiful is that? You know, it has prebiotics in there, and it has probiotics in there. Prebiotics really set the stage for the probiotics to be able to grow. And, you know, that's one of the things that I love about this formula. It literally supports the breakdown of food, the absorption of nutrients, and healthy elimination of toxins. You know, one of the things that I'm actually getting somebody had texted, and they asked where we can get it. All you have to do is go to drtjosborne.com, DRTJ Osborne, OSBORNE.com, and just click on the store, and you'll see the Max Kids Probiotics. But really, the main thing that I want to, and I'm not here to sell you products. What I'm here to do is to educate you and empower you to know that there are choices there. The second concern that parents have is, you know, it kind of comes along with a weak immune system. But really, you know, the one thing that every parent is pretty much been on stayed up late at night wondering what they should do is really, it's about the fever. Because what is a fever? You know, what's it doing? Is it doing the right thing? I mean, your whole life you've been told that a fever is bad, and in fact, you know, we have this. There's actually a diagnosed condition called fever phobia, and so I want to take the fear out of you, because what the American Academy of Pediatrics did in 2011, they released a report that's going to educated parents on fevers and addressed fever phobia. You know, sometimes a parent thinks that a kid has a high fever because it's 101 to 102 degrees, but that's not high. Certain viruses and bacteria in the body need them to get us to be a certain temperature to kill those bacteria. So if they're not having problems such as respiratory problems, then what you need to do is you don't want to distort it, you want to support it. The fever should go up and down and not stay stuck. Because as soon as you first notice that the big key though is as soon as that you first notice that they're fighting something, get them into a chiropractic office fast and first. Why? Because the things that I really want you to understand is that when a child gets adjusted, what it does is it helps their nervous system actually regulate and balance out body temperature there. So but the big thing is I want you to know is what is a fever. And it should be emphasized that fever is not an illness. It's the body's response to create homeostasis, to create balance there. Fever slows the growth and reproduction of bacteria and viruses, and literally fever actually helps the body recover more quickly from viral infections, although the fever may result in some discomfort for the child. I mean, it's kind of, think about like working out. Like nobody goes to the gym, works out, and expects not to be sore, right? Because it's a part of growth. Fever is a healing response there. It's the body fighting off something. It's doing its job, and it's important to understand that there's a reason for it. The body is intelligent, and it is in favor of life, and it would never do anything to destroy itself. And so that's why I told you one of the first things you should do is get the child into a chiropractic office, because the fever is a response trying to create homeostasis in the body, or balance. What controls homeostasis in the body is your nervous system. And all you have to do is look it up. Just Google what controls homeostasis in the human body, and it'll tell you the nervous system. So really what the American Academy of Pediatrics said, focus on the kid's well-being. to know if it's an emergency. The kids, they're tired, but and you might be tired, but really be aware of what's going on. Sometimes you'll see a kid with a fever, they're still playing around and being silly versus not responding, eyes rolled back in their head, being really lethargic. So pay attention to your kid if they do have a fever. And if you're starting to see things that concern you or other health issues, like respiratory issues, that would be a concern there. Keep hydrated with more than just water. And what I mean by that is, the worst thing that we can do is start adding, like having a kid drink a whole bunch of juices and sugary juices there. And the reason being is they have sugar in there, and we'll talk about later how sugar suppresses the immune system. And don't wake up a kid to try to administer fever-reducing medication. If a child's asleep, let them sleep. That means that their body's healing. Also, talk with the doctor about letting that fever run its course. Talk to me about letting it run its course, and really try to wait and on trying to give anything that will lower that fever, because all we're going to do is prolong the illness there. See, the thing you have to understand is that bacteria actually doubles in the human body every 20 minutes. So that's the importance of supporting not interfering right away. See, your immune system is suppressed for 5 hours after you consume sugar. And so your body is so intelligent, it has an army that will attack any invader. And fever is part of that response. So in a healthy immune system, that fever comes on right away and is gone in a day. That's a healthy response. If we go in there and we start eating a lot of sugar just because we want our kids to feel better, what we do is we suppress their immune response. And now we have to call in additional forces from the outside of the body. And you'll start things like, to lower the fever, to be able to, because the kid's getting sicker and sicker, and the illness lasts longer. And I think that's one of the things there was a study done by Loma Linda University that found that white blood cells are 40% less effective at killing germs when somebody consumes 100 grams of sugar. So just so you know, 100 grams of sugar would be equivalent to about 3 bagels there. So our goal when we're talking about fever, we want to react immediately. We don't want to have to play catch up. So we react by, making sure that our kids get adjusted. We react by making sure we watch their diet. We react by making sure that we keep the kids healthy. We react by making sure that they get rest there. We react by making sure they're eating healthy foods during those times and making sure they're not exposed to a lot of toxins. Because what the body's response is absolutely incredible. And what they find is that when a child has a fever, for every degree, and there's a typo there, sorry, of increased temperature, the speed of the white blood cells in the body double. Think about that. So when a child has a temperature of 104, the white blood cells travel 64 times faster than they have a normal temperature there. That's how intelligent your body is. Your body will produce mucus to wall off the invaders. It'll kill the invaders through an inflammatory response there. And then what it's going to try to do is eliminate the dead invaders through things like diarrhea and coughing and sneezing. And then it'll try to restore and rebuild later. See, the problem is that a lot of us, when a kid has a flu, we try to reduce the fever, which slows down the white blood cells. We try to get rid of the mucus production. Now that can't wall off the invaders there. We try to lower the temperature so or take an anti-inflammatory so the inflammatory response stops. We give them an anti-cough medication or an anti-diarrhea medication to stop them from getting rid of the dead or dying viruses and bacteria. And then we're wondering why our kids are getting sick. So just know that your kids' bodies are incredibly intelligent. They're designed to restore and to rebuild every single time. I do want to touch on one thing there, and really is aspirin and Tylenol. And over to the right, this is a picture of something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, and it's a horrific picture. But if you Google it, Stevens-Johnson syndrome is not uncommon, meaning that what happens is a child can take a Tylenol, and next thing you know, they develop third-degree burns on their face there, and in their body. Literally, their body starts burning itself from the inside out. There are no safe medications, and if you actually look up what the mechanism of action is for Tylenol, the mechanism will say unknown. And in fact, there's over 1,600 deaths a year, 78,000 emergency room visits for Tylenol a year. And the crazy thing is that we think of it as safe, but it decreases cartilage production, meaning that that your body can't produce the right cartilage for joints. It inhibits the building of like cartilage, and it actually causes accelerated bone destruction. See, people who take aspirin and Tylenol, they literally suppress their body's ability to produce antibodies. And this is from the Journal of Infectious Diseases. And so like we want to make the body strong, but anytime we take something from the outside, we interfere with the process. And the thing is the unintended consequences of our actions, we don't know what they are in advance. So I put that in there just to remind you that there is no safe medication out there. Now, some of you are wondering why I actually talked about chiropractic. And this is a really important thing. And in fact, it's probably one of the most important things that I'm going to talk about today, because really the number one thing that the basic premise of chiropractic is knowing that there is an intelligence, that your body is incredibly intelligent, and that health is being able to express that intelligence through the matter of our bodies. See, our bodies are designed with everything that they need, but when there's an interference to that design, this is when we start to see disease and infection begin. And during pregnancy, the health of a mother's body begins to support that intelligent design, and it'll literally cause it can cause an interference to the child's development. See, I think most people don't even really realize, but the human body is made up of 75 trillion cells. I mean, that's a lot of cells. And every single one of those cells has an innate ability to regulate itself and to heal itself and to more accurately recreate itself. And every one of those 75 trillion cells has the ability to differentiate between that which is food and that's which not. And every single one of these 75 trillion cells has the ability to assimilate and to excrete. And every single one of these cells has the ability to move. And there are characteristics that contribute to all these things are what we call cellular intelligence. And these cells have the ability to relate to and function with other cells in an organized, coordinated, harmonious, intelligent manner. And when these cells get together and do that, they form tissue. The tissue's ability to function properly and perfectly is what we call tissue intelligence. And those tissues also have the ability to relate to and function with other tissues in an organized, coordinated, harmonious fashion. And when these tissues get together, they form organs. And then as the organs, then they work together, and they have an intelligence called organ intelligence. And the organs also have the ability to relate and work with other organs. And we call it a system. The system intelligence. Even the systems have the ability to relate to and function with other systems. See, the body's ability to function is what we call body intelligence. But our chiropractic forefathers and foremothers decided to keep it simple and to put all that intelligence into one beautiful term called innate intelligence. That's all innate intelligence is. It's not a thing. It's not tangible. It's a term that we use to describe the self-healing, self-regulating nature of our body. And it's a term that we use to describe the body's ability and every single cell's ability to function perfectly. And how does that do it? Well, we have a brain. We have these 75 trillion cells. The body itself can only do its thing when it's connected to a power supply and when it's connected to a source of energy. And in the human body, we assume that source of energy, that power supply, is the brain and the spinal cord, because as far as we know, the nervous system is the only system that has either direct or indirect control with and control over every cell in the body. So it appeared that this innate intelligence and her wisdom uses the nervous system as her vehicle to perform her mission and to maintain the material of that body, which means that as long as the brain is connected to the body and the body to the brain, all those cells, the innate intelligence will be fully expressed in every single one of those cells, and the cells will function as they're designed to function, and the organ systems will function as they're designed to function there. And the body will function as it's designed to function. And the individual, the child who has a properly functioning nervous system, will at least have a chance to fulfill their own personal potential. Problem is there's something called a misalignment or a subluxation. And the presence of that subluxation is an interference to the nervous system. When the spine's misaligned, when the spine doesn't have the right curves, it's an interference that will interfere with the communication between the brain and the 75 trillion cells, which means it can't be fully expressed through those cells. And those cells can't function as they're designed to function. And those tissues can't function as they were designed to function. And those organs and the organ systems can't function as they're designed to function. That body can't function as it's designed to function. And this is the significance of why one of the first things that we do, that when we're trying to react to our kids not being functioning right or being healthy, is to make sure that they get adjusted. This is why it's so important to get them adjusted before and during and after symptoms appear, because we can trust the fever as long as we can understand that the body can self-regulate. And if it can regulate because it's not interfered with, it'll regulate itself as it was designed, as long as there's no interference there. Problem is this: when we look at the nervous system, there's something called uterine constraint. And people may think that my child's never had a concussion or a broken bone. Maybe a baby's, the baby was born with a seemingly non-traumatic birth. There might not be any interference at all, we think. The problem is that an interuterine constraint, it's caused by when a mother's pelvis is misaligned, and it causes the ligaments to torque and pull and twist. And if it's pulling more on one side, and the baby doesn't have free movement in the womb and during the developmental process there, what that can do is that can literally compromise the baby in utero, or really affect the baby during the delivery process, making it more difficult. And so this interuterine constraint is responsible for so many structural problems that we have. Cranial bone malformations, and you start to see more and more kids with helmets on their heads walking around. Craniofacial alterations, even congenital hip dysplasia. See, the most common problem in the upper cervical area and misalignments usually occur before kids even come into the world there. So as a child's developing, one of the things that we have to know is that we can have interference. And we can have interference from birth trauma, such as C-section delivery, forceps, vacuum extraction there. We can also have interference from lack of movement, such as in car seats, carriers, bouncers, the walkers, and the swings. So as a child's developing, they need their curves to develop. At one time, they thought that that the curves started at birth, but now that they know that the curves actually start in utero, meaning that when the child's in the mother's stomach. One study found that that the children that had been born, and they studied 1,500 babies, that over 90% of those children had strain in their neck and their cranial area after birth. So, and they found that if this went uncorrected, it would interfere with their development. They call it the blocked nerve pulses at the atlas can lower resistance to infection, especially ear, nose, and throat infections. Another study found that 80% of children are not in autonomic balance, meaning that their nervous system, they're stuck in a fight-flight mode, meaning that their nervous system, their sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive. And when this happens, we start to see things like hyperactivity, issues with focus, lack of emotional control, decreased digestion, decreased immunity. And many times this happens with a C-section delivery. This type of upper cervical trauma can happen with a C-section delivery, or when we have any intervention like vacuum extraction. And many people think that a C-section is safe. It's actually not. It's actually more traumatic for the baby. So the other thing is that like I talked about, the interference from lack of motion, these restrictions, they can lead to a kid not developing the secondary curves in their spine, the forward arc of the neck and the low back there. And babies with the problem with this is that, when we were kids, we didn't have car seats. And now it's mandatory that our kids have car seats, but those car seats weren't even designed for proper spinal curves. They're not designed for spinal health. They're designed to protect your child from injury. And so, unfortunately, most of the times kids fall asleep in the car. Mom brings the child in the house, leaves them in the car seat. That's something that's detrimental to their spinal health, and then leaves them there for hours. And sometimes they carry them around the house in these car seats there. Or worse, that we start to put a child into a bouncer or a walker when they can't even sit up or stand up by themselves, causing alterations in like how their spine's going to work, and causing a collapse of the spine before they actually have the properly functioning enough muscles to actually be able to hold them up. Swings and the bumbos, all those things that we really have to look at. They're a great convenience for the parent, but they're detrimental to a child's health. One of the things that we can do is, as soon as you get them home, get them out of the car seat. Like I said, they're designed for safety, not proper spinal curves. And so get them on their stomach, let them do tummy time, let the kids lay flat, let them stretch out and develop the nerves the way that they should. But the big thing is, if a parent should have their kid's spine evaluated. And if there is a problem, then it must be corrected early to make sure that they don't interfere with neurologic development. So, like I said, just remember, make sure that you get them out of the car seat as quickly as you can. Don't put them in the walkers or swings. My grandmother used to always say, if they can't roll over, don't roll them over. If they can't sit, don't sit them up. If they can't walk, don't walk. If they can't do their homework, don't do their homework for them. See, the development's a process, and you can't like hurry up a process there. So some of the signs and symptoms that we look for, if a kid has neurologic issues, they have an inability to latch, and difficulty latching, or they'll favor one side when they're nursing. They'll start seeing reflux. And this is one of the craziest things, because it's only happened in the last decade, where they're starting to prescribe medication for acid reflux in an infant. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Things like constipation and excess gas. I had a mother bring their child in. The doctor said that the mother said he hasn't gone to the bathroom in 7 days. And the doctor said, oh, that's okay. It's about normal once a week for a child to go to the bathroom. Are you kidding me? My kids would go 3, 4, 5 times a day. You start seeing children with sleep issues because their body's stuck in that sympathetic overdrive, respiratory stress issues, recurrent respiratory and weak immune systems, even recurrent ear infections. See, one of the things about ear infections is that when a child has a subluxation or a misalignment, it'll cause the muscles to get tight. When those muscles are tight, well, unfortunately, under the neck muscles run run lymph nodes. Those lymph nodes take white blood cells to an area of infection, and they drain that area of infection. And so, if those muscles are tight, they block up the lymph nodes, and then the lymph nodes actually it creates a back pressure into the child's ear, leaving the bacteria in there to multiply and multiply. And if you ever notice, it's the same type of thing. Think of the last time you had a cold. And you couldn't breathe out of one nose, and then you went and then you could only lay in one. But if you laid in one way, you could actually breathe, and then if you laid another way, you couldn't breathe. Well, that's only because the muscle tension was like blocking up your lymph nodes from draining there. See, the thing is, we've been told these things are common. These things are common, but they're not normal. Something is causing it, and as a parent, if your child has any of these, you need to find out why. So, question is can the body adapt? Your body has a design, and if you don't use it the way it was designed, it's going to break down. I mean, it's just common sense. Eating right, exercising, detoxing, these are all incredibly important things, but most important, we need to make sure that there is no interference to the nervous system so the body can function and heal. I mean, think about this. Why would one child receive 49 doses of 14 vaccines and seem to have no reaction, yet another kid has a reaction after only one vaccine? One child can adapt and the other can't. Why would one child go to Burger King or McDonald's and eat sugar and rarely be sick, yet another has the exact same diet or even eats gluten-free, organic, raw, and is ridden with allergies and asthma and eczema? They can't adapt. See, it's all about the nervous system and the body's ability to combat the daily physical, chemical, and emotional stresses placed upon it. This was really when I looked at this. This was one of our patients, and they're twins. They're identical twins. They're 6-year-old brothers. Both of them received the same medical care. And they had the same food. They had the same, outfits. They lived in the same room there. The difference is that if you on the slide on the left, you'll see the child has a nice smooth curve. And you'll see that there's between the base of his skull and the first bone, you'll see that there's space there. And if you look at the picture to the right, that spinal cord looks nice and healthy, and there's space where the brainstem is. The child at the right, you'll see that they have a reversal of that curve, and there's no space between the skull and the top bone. See, the Connor on the left, he's a totally neurotypical child. This was his initial X-ray in the office there. And then Chase on the right, he regressed into autism. This is his initial X-ray. How could two kids get the same vaccine on the same day? And these two kids went to the same doctor. Like I said, they were on the same vaccine schedule. They ate the same foods, breathed the same air, and they had the exact same genetics. They're identical twins, for crying out loud, but only one regressed into autism. the question is, you're going to have to answer that question yourself, but to me, it seems pretty obvious. So regardless of symptoms, diagnosis, history, what is the one system that needs thorough, specific, and scientific evaluation, well checks on every child and every person? Yes, it's the spine and the nervous system there. This is a picture of a family, and we literally have about 30% of our practice is pediatric. And adjusting babies, just so you know, is not like adjusting adults. Even the Journal of Pediatrics said that there's significant utilization of chiropractic care in the United States. In fact, there's about 30 million pediatric visits annually in the U.S. Chiropractic pediatrics is safe. It's a gentle approach to not only restoring health, but more importantly, working on prevention. See, we need to teach our kids to learn responsibility to take care of their life when they're young, and that really sets the standard for the rest of their life. So let's talk about starting chiropractic care when they're young. So many people don't know that there's an option. They really don't know. And that's one of the reasons why we're actually doing this talk, is because there are options. There are options for healthcare for our kids that don't include drugs, don't include surgery, don't include vaccines, don't include waiting till their child gets sick, don't include having their child get a diagnosis. See, I always ask kids, if they're patients, if there's one single thing that you could do that would forever impact the health of your child, would you do it? The answer is always yes. And the answer is get your well baby checked to make sure your child's nervous system is functioning properly. People also know that people that have lost or that are lost are struggling, and those are people that you need to say something to, because if you don't say something to them, who will? And if they keep doing what they've always done because they don't know any other option, where are they going to end up there? So the thing to look at is making sure the body's functioning right. The second thing is, and to know that, we have to trust that it's intelligent. But the number one thing that I see in this day and age is we really need to look at minimizing toxins. We literally live in a toxic environment, because when you start looking around, we have 4 billion prescription drugs that are ingested each year. We have 70,000 chemicals that are used commercially. There's 3,000 chemicals that are in our food supply. And even the EPA has estimated that our homes are 5 to 100 times more toxic than even the outside air. See, and what's crazy when you start thinking about it, they're almost like the silent killer, because you can't see them, you can't taste them. But if you had to eat, the average person in the United States gets exposed to 140 to 150 pounds of additives a year. What that means is that if you had to sit down and eat a 150-pound bag of preservatives, you never would do it. So I think the other thing that I really think that we need to watch out for is flame retardants. They call them PBDEs, and they're widely used in foam furniture foam and electronics. They actually and a lot of times we'll find that as the kids are crawling around and they're on their hands and they're licking their hands and they're putting their toys in their mouth, these PBDEs are found on the floor. They look like dust, but they're flame retardants, and they cause memory and learning and developmental problems, as well as endocrine disorders and disruption, and even been shown to cause cancer. I put this through to you not to create anxiety, but to create awareness, because if we're not aware, then we don't even have a choice. And in fact, there was a study that was called 10 Americans. And this is incredibly important because it was done in 2012 by the Environmental Working Group. And so what they did is they took blood samples from 10 Americans who had no direct exposure to toxins. And the reason they had no exposure to toxins is because they were still in their mother's belly. And so just as they were delivered, they actually took blood from the umbilical cord blood, and they found that there was 287 chemicals in the average child's cord blood. 287 chemicals, and the average baby had over 200 chemicals. 28 were waste byproducts. 47 were consumer product ingredients such as Teflon and Scotchgard and flame retardants. There were 212 industrial chemicals and pesticides. Some of them had even been banned over 30 years ago. See, this is extremely dangerous, because a baby in the uterus has no blood-brain barrier yet. So the toxins that they give are going right into the brain. Babies are the most vulnerable to toxins during the 9 months of development. because of this. See, 134 of these chemicals, by the way, were found to cause birth defects. There was 154 hormone disruptors. 186 of them were known to cause infertility. So these children that are being born, they're being exposed to chemicals that cause infertility even before they were born. Have you ever noticed that we're having more and more people having difficulty getting pregnant? And there's more and more pregnancy centers fertility centers out there. In this study, they found that 158 of these chemicals that these Americans were exposed to were actually neurotoxins, meaning that they're toxic to the nervous system. Remember, the nervous system controls that intelligence in your body. It runs the function of your body. They found things like lead and PCBs and mercury and even DDT, which has been banned since I think in the 70s in the United States. And the problem is that these things lead to intelligence and motor coordination issues. Hopefully, you're understanding why toxicity is such a main thing for me. And we can't avoid the exposure to toxins altogether. I mean, we can really work hard to minimize them, but there's always an ongoing exposure with these things that we can control. So for things that we cannot control, we just need to remove the interference. And these toxins, and the way that we do this is by detoxing. We really do, and this is what I always recommend to people, that you always are doing an ongoing detox to avoid exposure and try to detox your family a minimum of twice a year. I always think of it as spring and fall cleaning for our bodies. But the nice thing is that in the Max Kids Detox Powder, it's like a powder, so you can combine it in your kids' favorite vegetables or snacks, and it gently detoxifies the two major organ systems of elimination, the digestive tract and the liver. It's got a lot of fiber in there from apple pectin combined with probiotics to promote like smoother bowel movements. It alleviates constipation, reduces inflammation. It has milk thistle and dandelion to support liver and gallbladder health. I think the thing is that avoiding toxins is something that you have to do every day. Changing your personal care products, changing your products that you have in the house, but also changing and then at the same time, knowing that we can't avoid it, you just have to make sure that you personally do a detox and your kids do a detox at least twice a year. Now, nutrition is a big one. It's a massive one because, and I think that the biggest challenge is what are my kids going to eat? Well, there's really two choices that you have. You have foods by God and foods by man. And when we start really looking at it in the grand scheme of things, man has not done a very good job of building health in people. But the natural foods that are grown, vegetables and things that are actually alive ones, they've always been proven. There's no study that proves that eating a healthy diet makes you sicker there. See, the amount of nutrients in our food, though, has been declining due to soil depletion and selective breeding. They did a study once that compared the content of 12 different vegetables in 1975 and compared them to the same type of vegetables in 1997. They found that calcium levels have dropped 27%, iron levels are down almost 40%, vitamin A down 21%, your vitamin C in the food is down 30%. And another study found that you have to eat 7 oranges today to get the same amount of vitamin A as your grandparents did. See, this generation of kids is exposed to more nutrient deficient and a more nutrient deficient and toxic world, which is what we have to do, why we have to do more than what our parents did for us when we were growing up there. I just want to remind you, this was that you are what your mom ate there. And really what they find is, and I want you to remember this, is that an unhealthy diet during pregnancy will lead to long-term irreversible health issues in children. Even they found when a child's diet is changed, how they metabolize their food for the rest of their life will be affected there. And so this is an incredibly important thing, that if you're a mother, if you're thinking about becoming a mother, if you're a grandmother and your grandchild's going to have kids one day, knowing that what they know and how they live their life will affect their kids' kids there. So the problem is that we just have to remember that this lie that we're weak and that the human body is frail and it needs help, that's a lie that begins at birth. Birth is just a natural process. It's not a medical procedure. The child didn't need any help having 2 eggs, an egg and a sperm come together and make 72 trillion cells. I think that I just want to go back one last thing to talk about. Dean Ornish did a study And when we were talking about you are not your genes, and really I just wanted to show you, okay, if maybe I've done bad and made bad choices my whole entire life, like how long is it going to take to really have an impact there? So what he did was that he looked at, he did gene scans of these of his patients, and then he had them eat a healthy diet. Go figure, right? And he had them exercise, like walking for half an hour a day, something simple just to make some changes. And then they spent an hour a day doing stress reduction, such as meditation. And what they found was that after 3 months, that they had actually changed their genes. Literally within 3 months, they were able to change their genes. And they found that 48 genes had been turned on, and over 453 genes have been turned off, meaning that they had an impact on over 500 genes within 3 months just by small little lifestyle changes. So the thing is that there is no regrets, because you can't change your past, but you can change your future. And all it takes is as little as 3 months to be able to have a major impact in your future. And just as a reminder, remember the 3 things that we always want to look at is everybody every day is vitamin D. And like I put right here, on your genes, there's over 2,000, almost 3,000 binding sites for vitamin D receptors on your genes for that to actually work. Literally, they say that vitamin D status is potentially one of the most powerful selective pressures on our genes in recent times there. And I think the thing that's important about that is that when we're not exposed to the sun, we're going to be deficient. So if your kids aren't outside, they're not getting sun, you're putting suntan lotion on them all the time to keep them from getting sunburn, they're going to be vitamin D deficient, and it's going to have a genetic effect on them. Remember, vitamin D, omega-3s, which build the brain, reduce inflammation, and probiotics, which build the microbiome there. And then we support by actually, we support them by actually having with the detox there on a regular basis. So what do we do, right? The question is it's really simple, and you know, and I know that probably we shouldn't be putting Lunchables in our kids' lunch, right? The problem is that we make decisions, unfortunately, sometimes out of convenience. Bags of chips. A bag of chip is made up of trans fats in the chips. The oils in there becomes a trans fat, and it goes on to and those trans fats lock into a child's cells for a minimum of 51 days, literally starving, making it concrete on that cell, so the nutrients can't get in and toxins can't get out, hastening cell death and causing that child to age prematurely. It seems big, but that's why they banned trans fats in several states and cities there. That's why they've changed the labeling on there to make you think that there's no trans fats, because trans fats are literally deadly, and they go in that bag of chips. Really, anything that's any oil that you see on the bag that's hydrogenated, you see hydrogenated this, or soybean oils, vegetable oils, those are things that are trans fats. Desserts, really, you're going to put a dessert in your kid's lunch. You do it because you love them. But don't you love them enough not to put something in their lunch that will actually suppress their immune system and make them much more likely to get sick there? And fruit drinks. Fruit drinks are some of the worst, highest concentration of sugars out there. Sugar actually has something called, when sugar is broken down, it creates something called AGEs, which stands for advanced glycosylation end products. But what it does is it causes the cells to actually become glued, like stick together, kind of like a creme brulee. And literally it causes the body to age at an accelerated rate. So when they're drinking their fruit drinks, they're literally causing your child to age at an accelerated rate. The problem is that we know what to do, but when they ask moms, 70% of moms said they're going to graduate laden foods and low-fat foods, typically, which means more processed and refined foods. Why do we do it? We do it out of convenience. The problem, the reason why we do it out of convenience is we just don't have a plan. And really what I want you to think about is looking at proteins. You know, protein is there's 3 types of things that we eat: carbohydrates, we eat fats, and we eat proteins. Fats are for energy and hormones. Carbohydrates are for energy, and protein is for building. So if your child's not getting enough protein in their body, they're not going to be able to build a strong, healthy body there. Proteins, like looking at, you can prep a bunch of organic chicken breasts ahead of time and cut them into little cubes for easy eating. You can give the kid hummus and raw cheeses and seeds. When we're looking at the carbs, vegetables are a great source of carbs. And what they find is that, you know, the more that that a child is exposed to vegetables, the more that they're going to eat them. And of course, they're going to, if you give a child an apple, the choice between an apple and a donut, they're going to take the donut every single time, unless they've been educated about what the right choice is there. So vegetables are a great source of carbs. They're very filling. They have a lot of great fiber. They help the body to go to the bathroom. You can dip them into hummus or find a healthy dipping sauce that they'd like. Berries and apple slices, pickles, coconut wraps. You can cut fruits and veggies into smaller pieces. Kids will be more likely to eat them. Good fats such as like sliced olives, hard-boiled eggs, sprouted seeds, avocados. And the good news is they help with the long-term energy. See, when you have a child that their diet is primarily carbohydrates, the insulin levels are going to go up. They're going to cause the blood sugar to crash, and then the kid's going to become hyperactive. They're going to be anxiety ridden. They're going to be much more reactive. They're not going to be able to think. They're going to fall asleep in class there. And then the last thing that should go into that lunch is water. Water makes up 70% of our body, and it should make up a bigger part of our diet there. So I'm really going to suggest that if you have questions about you know, what to pack in our lunches, just contact us. We have a little book that one of our patients put together. We also have I also have videos online if you go on our YouTube site here about how to shop for your kids. There's also other videos that we've done on, you know, healthy families where we talk about this. But I just really want to remind you this is 90% of the atoms in your body will not be there for a year from now. Question is where do these atoms come from? These atoms come primarily from food. It's absolutely true. So you are what you eat. And think about what an amazing opportunity this is. If you've messed up your health over the years, you can start all over and have a whole new body in 90 days if you want. You know, and I think that is like, I mean, like you can like, or a year from now. See, when you eat, you're either enriching your life or you're damaging it. When you're feeding your kids, you're either enriching and helping them fulfill their potential, or you're damaging their potential. I think a lot of us rationalize that living unwell may shave a year or two off of our lives. That's not a big deal. The reality is how you manage your beliefs, your stress, what you eat can make a difference of 5, 10, or even 20 years in your lifespan there. And that's just years. That doesn't mean that that doesn't take into account of the fact that you might be sick, you might not be living at your full potential in the years that you are alive. And so it's not just about quantity years, it's about quality years there. So I guess the question comes in is that we're always going to be making decisions, whether we're moving towards our life's purpose or away from it. And what we just have to ask ourselves is what we're eating, what our kids are eating. What we have to know is that it impacts on how they feel. The foods that we eat will impact how we feel, and how we feel impacts how we think. And guess what? What you eat impacts how your children will think. So why would we send our kids to a high-priced high school or a private school, or get them tutors, or why would we send them off to trying to send them off to college and pay $60,000 a year for a college education when they can't even think right because they've never learned on how to eat right there? So here's the key. A couple tips here. Tips before you shop. And this is and you can actually go to the environmental working group, which is a really great a really great thing. You know, just first of all, plan. Make a meal plan and a shopping list. Use foods that and use the coupons and deals that you find in the store. Add more fruits and vegetables to your meal plan. Fill half your plate with fruits and vegetables. You can get 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day for about the cost of a bus ride in most cities. Add beans and lentils to your meal plan. Pick beans and lentils instead of meat for two or more dinners a week. And really skip the processed foods like frozen pizza, cookies, and soda. They usually cost more than fresh and healthy foods. Canned foods are convenient, but eat fresh or frozen when you can to lower your exposure to toxic chemicals. So I think the last thing is that when we're talking about tips at home, I just really wanted to, the couple things is really cook and freeze and grow your own. You know, cook and freeze large batches. And, you know, we have recipe books. You go to the Maximize Living website, check on our website for recipes there. Save money by cooking at home or eating out less. Store foods, and you just make sure you're storing your food properly, and you'll throw away less there. But also growing your own. You don't need a big backyard. Just some containers, a sunny window, and a little soil. You can always community gardens are often free. Try like things like cherry tomatoes and lettuce first. The kids will love to do it. They love to be able to see those things grow. But you can also go to the environmental working group also, and you go ewg.org /good food, and they'll have some really great tips for you. When going to the store, a couple things that we can do is really stocking up and saving money. Foods that include rice, beans, cooking oils, and frozen foods. But buy extra when they're on sale. Check the unit prices. Bigger packages are often cheaper. Buy from bulk containers if your store has them. Really look on bargains on fruits and vegetables. Use they have a lot of times they have price trackers to find good deals on these. Comparing labels, and that's a big thing that you need to look at is how to compare labels and label reading. And that is on our shopping. We did a class on how to shop. And that is and if you watch that, I'll teach you how to read labels. Healthier foods usually have less saturated fat, less trans fats there. And then really, think about this, look for deals at the farmer's market. Sometimes they'll get you, you'll get a lot more produce for your dollar there. What not to buy at the store though: salad dressings, pre-shredded or grated cheeses, deli meats, some of the guacamoles and hummuses and salsas and exotic produce. The salad dressing in the store has literally 12 to 20 ingredients and adds a couple hundred extra calories to your dinner. Learn to make homemade dressings that'll have 3 or 4 ingredients instead of 10 to 20. This pre-shredded cheese is convenient, but did you ever wonder why it doesn't melt? Companies that make those bags cut costs by adding non-cheese fillers, including wood pulp to them. A large amount of processed food dates are artificially short, so the grocery stores have to reorder them. So putting a new expiration date on expiring meat is what they do before putting plastic wrap on it. Go to the butcher counter and order your meat fresh. The other thing is guacamole, hummus, and salsa. If you buy manufactured brands, you're likely to get a large amount of chemical additives. They can also be potentially made with semi-rotten tomatoes and squishy avocados that get repurposed. Really, again, it comes down to making your own. Exotic produce, by the way, few people buy it. So that means that it stays longer in between rotations. So if you like exotic or unfamiliar things, go to specialty markets that you can really trust. But I think the main thing is that, like I said, we don't take supplements just because we have a bad diet. We supplement for deficiencies and deficiencies only. So when we start looking at the number one question I get is, what kind of multivitamin should I give my kids? That's why we designed the Max Kids multivitamin. It's naturally sweetened. The Max Kids Chewable, it provides kids with a foundation for healthy growth and development. Kids don't always get the nutrients that they need from their food. So if you got a picky eater, you have to make sure that they have the vitamins and minerals that they need to be able to eat. And then the nice thing about this complete multivitamin, it literally bridges the gap between diet and optimal nutrition. I mean, each tablet contains things like vitamins, minerals, bioflavonoids, and fermented superfoods. And there's no cane sugar, fructose, artificial sweeteners, colors, or flavors. The other thing is I talked about omega-3. And so the nice thing is that with Max Kids, we put them all together, omega-3 and vitamin D. And that'll allow your kid, with a great taste, something that they'll take and they'll actually like. But it really is going to start, it's important for them to start a lifelong of health and wellness there. And the other thing is that don't forget about mom or dad, right? We're typically eating a lot of the same food our kids are. So if, we want to make sure that we get the supplements that we need to be able to help support us in this process. I guess as we kind of come to the end here, I just really want to talk about mindset. And that's the biggest thing, because a lot of times we get overwhelmed. And I think the biggest thing that will have an impact, because it get us out of this reactive place, is having a positive family environment. And I really think that, as a family, we like to live by, when we have a code of how we live, it makes a big difference. And just put a sample code up there for you. But imagine if this was your family's code. We don't make excuses. We work hard. We take care of ourselves. We do what we're saying we're going to do, and we never give up. So if your kid comes in and says he can't do something, well, then we say, look, Osborne men, look, we never give up. That's part of our code. That's who we are. And a code becomes your identity. So imagine if you have a child that that his identity, that they don't make excuses, that they work hard, they take care of themselves, they're going to do, and they're never give up. Do you think they're going to have a better shot at a great life? And what if that was the whole code for your entire family? We just need to be able to teach our kids who they are, and if they know who they are, when they go out into the outside world, they'll be able to have a better chance. But really, the thing that in this process is, it comes down to discipline. Discipline literally is equal to freedom to me. Discipline starts with waking up early in the morning. And there's a couple different types of discipline that we run into, what we call imposed discipline, when someone else makes you do what you want to do, what they want you to do. And then there's self-discipline, when you take control of yourself and when you push yourself and you do the hard things. The problem is, a lot of times people think, they don't think about discipline, they just think about motivation. The thing about motivation, it's kind of a funny thing. It's just a feeling, and it comes and it goes. See, discipline keeps you on the warrior's path. It gives, when we have financial freedom, we have financial discipline. We save money, we don't waste it. When we start thinking about food as fuel, we discipline ourselves with what we put into our body, and our body is made like a car, and the food that we eat is fuel. See, the only time to start making yourself better, the only time to start making your family better is now. It's not tomorrow, it's not next week. It takes a good plan and the discipline to execute it. So if you're willing to do the work, yeah, you can just do just about anything. It's going to be hard, but everything's hard. You do the hard things first, and then the easy things get easier. See, the biggest problem is that we have fear. Fear is in the waiting. Fear is when remember, like when you were a kid, you were waiting for your dad to come home? That's where the fear is. Fear is the waiting is waiting to do something that you should be. Fear only lives in the moment. And that's a powerful moment between when you decide you're going to do something and when you do it. That's when you overcome your fear. So what are the next steps? What are the next steps to getting out of fear and taking action there? Well, it's really simple. Number one is making sure that if you haven't gotten your kid's nervous system checked, get them checked. Keep your kids moving. Try to keep away from the screen time there as much as you possibly can. Keep away from the TV and the computers and the phones. Looking at daily affirmations, like we talked about a family code, but like things that the kids say about themselves. Who am I? And really help them develop their own affirmations there. Having family workouts, the family that works out together, they get healthy together. Looking at better nutrition, things such as minimizing processed foods, reading nutrition labels and being aware of sugars, and really the kids' supplements, looking for and reducing toxic ingredients in there and supplementing as we move forward. So I just want to thank you guys. I think that the actions, I share those action steps with you. If you want to register for future events that we have in the office, all you have to do is go to www.drtjosborne.com, drtjosborne.com. If you have questions specifically, you can just leave them down below, or you can email me at doc@drtjosborne.com. That's drtjosborne.com. I know we went a little bit long tonight, but I felt like there was a lot of information we wanted to get out. So the real big thing is, in this process of change, just realize there's a problem. That's what we tried to teach you. The number two thing is to commit to change. You got to formulate an action plan. That's why we gave you the 5 essentials there. And now you got to execute the plan. You got to start applying those 5 essentials in your life. And that's where we step out of fear. We step back into power, and then stand back, see the results. See, when you choose not to take care of your health, you're doing a disservice to everyone you're supposed to reach with our message to the world. Everything that you do will have a ripple effect that goes from you into the world, impacting everyone around you and beyond. So if you believe you're here on this planet to give your greatest gifts to the world, then you have a choice to live your life's purpose or not. And it all starts with the inner world of your own body and your own health. So I just want to thank you once again. Let's see if we can fix this. Maybe we'll figure this thing out to make it simpler next time there. So I hope you guys learned a lot tonight. If you would like more webinars like this, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to do them for you. We could have gone for about 10 hours there, but thank goodness we didn't. We got to get home, make sure I get home to dinner with my wife and son. All right, have a great night. Be blessed. And once again, if you need anything, go to drtjosborne.com.